If you've ever been the responsible one, you know the role doesn't start in adulthood. It starts with small choices and bigger silences. It starts when you're a kid who cleans up messes you didn't make. We grew up in Tacoma in a beige house with a chain-link fence and a cherry tree that never quite blossomed. Mom worked double shifts at a clinic. Dad sold cars and charm in equal measure. Ryan is 3 years younger than me and somehow, always older in my parents' eyes. Older in freedom, in excuses, in boys will be boys. At 12, I learned the cost of being the steady daughter. I had saved for a year, babysitting, dog walking, for a refurbished laptop. I wanted to learn Excel because my math teacher told me I had a mind for patterns. I marked my savings in a glass jar with blue tape. $178. Then $212. Then $290. One Saturday I came home from Safeway and the jar was empty. The blue tape lay ripped, sticky on the counter. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad rubbed the back of his neck and said, "Your brother got in a little scrape. He needed to pay a kid back for a misunderstanding." "He stole it?" I asked. "You let him." "Family shares," Dad said as if that were wisdom. "You'll understand when you're older." Ryan didn't apologize. He sauntered in, chewing gum, handed me a crushed pack of Twizzlers like I was 5. "Thanks, V." That night I printed a new label for a different jar. "Do not touch." I hid it under my bed. I also started locking my bedroom door, which turned into a whole "Why are you forming bad habits?" lecture from Dad, who never locked anything except his liquor cabinet. At 14 I won a regional math competition. A tiny trophy, a photo in the local paper. Mom hugged me and said she was proud. Dad said, "Let Ryan hold the trophy for the picture. He looks better in photos." The article printed with my name wrong and Ryan's smile right in the middle. He framed it for the hallway. At 16 he crashed my Honda Civic into a mailbox while borrowing it to help a friend. Mom called it a mistake. I took a bus for 3 months to my after-school job at a bookstore. When I mentioned money, Dad said, "You know we can't afford extra repairs, Victoria. You'll have to cover it." It was always the same choreography. Ryan leaps. We catch him. I learned to be careful as a reflex, like blinking. I watched my classmates dream about colleges. I planned scholarships and loan formulas. Kept my head down. I learned how to rob my own heart of a reaction because in our house, the loudest person got fed. Once when I was 18 I overheard Mom whispering to Aunt Maggie in the kitchen. "Victoria is so contained," she said. "Ryan has a spirit that needs room." Aunt Maggie said, "So does she. Bless that woman. If I have a soft place to land in this family, it's her." I left for the University of Washington with a backpack, a planner, and a determination that felt almost religious. I studied finance because money had controlled our house like weather. I swore I would make it boring, predictable, mine. I worked part-time at the campus library, took extra credits, graduated early. Meanwhile, Ryan figured things out. He tried community college for a quarter. He tried selling sneakers online. He tried being a DJ. He tried being tired. Sometimes I sent Mom grocery money when Dad switched dealerships and their hours shrank. Sometimes I sent Ryan rent loans that turned into donations. Never felt like charity. Felt like the natural order. Put your mask on others first. Leave yours dangling. Favoritism doesn't always look like parades for one child and scorn for the other. Sometimes it's 1,000 tiny tilts of the table. The glass keeps sliding to the same side and everyone pretends it's level. The ugliest moments weren't explosions. They were humiliations designed as lessons. I was 24, first year at a small investment firm near Pioneer Square. Entry-level, good health insurance. A desk by a window where you could see fairies creep across the sound. I brought Dad to a Bring Your Family office mixer because he loved to network. He wore his best suit and introduced himself like a mayor. 5 minutes in, he clapped a partner on the shoulder and said, "My daughter's the dependable one. Ryan's the star though. He's out there making moves." He said this while I handed the partner a performance report I'd rebuilt after an analyst messed it up. I laughed it off, cheeks burning. Later, in the elevator, he squeezed my shoulder. "You know what I mean. You're practical. He's special." Special meant that when Ryan got a DUI at 22, the whole family rearranged itself around his shame. I took a day off to drive him to court. Mom cried. Dad ranted about the unfairness of cops with quotas. No one asked me if I could afford to miss the meeting I had prepared for all week. After the hearing, Ryan said sincerely, "You're the best, V. Can you also cover the lawyer? Dad's cash-strapped." I said yes. I always said yes. Even when it split me like dry wood. Then came the worst. When I was 26, I had a serious health scare. Sudden bleeding and pain that landed me in the ear. Turns out I had fibroids that needed surgery. It was terrifying and embarrassing and frankly lonely. I told Mom the night before the procedure. She said she would try to come. He didn't. She texted, "Ryan had a panic attack about his job. Can you call him later?" Aunt Maggie sat with me instead, held my hand while I woke up groggy, brought me apple slices in a Ziploc bag. When Mom finally visited, she stood at the foot of the bed and said, "You're strong. You don't need fussing. Your brother is fragile. Do you hear the message? You are the ground. He is the glass. If anything breaks, we know who to blame and who to sweep." By 28, I had a down payment saved for a tiny studio in Capitol Hill. I signed the mortgage with shaking hands and bought a thrifted coffee table and an expensive mattress. It was the first thing I owned that no one could borrow. When Ryan needed a couch to crash on for a week, it turned into 3 months. He ate my groceries and left his socks everywhere and called me Mom like a joke. I asked for $200 to help with utilities. He rolled his eyes. "Chill. I'll Venmo you from my next gig." 2 days after I finally pushed him to move out, I saw my coffee table for sale on his Facebook marketplace. He had the nerve to caption it, "Upgrading. Lightly used." I bought a new lock. I bought a second lock for my trust. The year before Bali, he showed up on my door with tear-streaked cheeks and a scan of a mass on his phone. He said words that turn your marrow to ice. "They think it's cancer." Mom fell apart. Dad made phone calls he didn't intend to complete. I sat on my couch holding my brother's fingers and all the old resentments went quiet. He was my kid again, shirt glued with otter pops, hair flattened by a bike helmet. I said, "Hey, we do this together." That "together" nearly ruined me. And it was built on a lie. The first bill was $1,740. Outpatient consult. I paid it because he cried and I was raised to move fast. Then came labs, imaging, a biopsy, and oncology intake. I learned to speak insurance on hold music. Ryan said he didn't want to loop in Mom and Dad because Mom would spiral and Dad would make it about him. He said he'd pay me back when the case fund came through. I didn't ask what that meant. I wanted to keep him calm. I set up a color-coded sheet. I scheduled payments so my credit score wouldn't drown. I ate rice and eggs for dinner and sold my old DSLR camera to cover a surprise urgent procedure. I told Zoe I couldn't join the team for happy hour because family stuff. When my manager asked if I was okay, I smiled the way exhausted women do. Tight. Bright. Lies. The papers he sent grew more polished. Clinic logos. Names of doctors I couldn't reach. He'd forward PDFs late at night with, "Can you cover this one fast? They'll delay treatment if it's not paid." That is a cruel sentence to send someone who loves you. I pressed pay over and over with shaking hands. Then came the night I crossed a line I didn't know I had. My emergency fund was gone. My spare credit card was close to tapping out. He texted, "They need $5,400 by noon or they switch me to a cheaper drug." I'm terrified. I stared at those numbers until the screen blurred. I opened my retirement account and moved $6,000 out, penalty be damned. I was nauseous when I clicked confirm. I told myself I'd rebuild later. Later is a liar we all love. A week before Bali, he called me at 2 a.m., voice small. "I don't want to die," he said. I sat in the dark with my back against the fridge and said, "You won't. I've got you." The next morning I spent my bus ride reading articles about anti-nausea meds and ginger tea. I ordered him soft blankets. I Venmo'd him for clean groceries. He sent a heart emoji. When the Instagram video arrived, it wasn't just proof of his betrayal. It was proof of my own refusal to see what lived in plain sight because the alternative, accepting that the person you've always rescued would use cancer as a credit line, was too grotesque to say out loud. I wish I could tell you I confronted him with righteous fury the second I knew. I didn't. First I checked myself. I called Swedish, asked for the oncology department, asked to confirm a patient. They told me privacy laws and I told them I was paying the bills and they said kindly, "Ma'am, we don't have those invoice numbers in our system." I stared at the long hallway of my mind where all the little moments lived, The empty jar, the borrowed car, the missed surgery visit, and I watched them line up and point at this one. Of course. That was the night I stopped being the ground. I printed the PDFs. I highlighted inconsistencies. I exported my bank transfers with notes and put them in a folder labeled R. I emailed an attorney named Elena Park, referred by a colleague whose ex once tried to borrow his 401k. She replied within an hour, "Come by tomorrow. Bring everything." I barely slept. The sun rose and I felt something that felt like grief and grit braided together. I brushed my hair, packed a sandwich, grabbed my folder and left for Elena's office. I thought about Aunt Maggie's question from years ago, whispered at the kitchen counter after Dad had called Ryan the star. When do you stop saving people who won't swim? I didn't answer then. I had one now. I'm Victoria Jones, 31 years old, a financial analyst in Seattle, Washington. And I found out my little brother lied about having cancer while he was partying in Bali. It started with a photo that shouldn't have existed. I was in my studio apartment, sitting cross-legged on the rug with a stack of hospital bills and my laptop open to my bank statements. I had just sent another transfer, $3,800, to cover chemo complications from Swedish Medical Center. My palms were clammy. Rent was due in a week. My savings were a number I didn't want to acknowledge out loud. My phone buzzed. A coworker, Zoe, DM'd me on Instagram with 3 words. "Is this Ryan?" I tapped the story. There he was. My brother, shirtless at a beach club in Tsangu, holding a bottle the size of my forearm, confetti raining down, sunlit ocean behind him. The caption from his friend read, "Bali boys. No sleep, no regrets." There was a location tag. There were 4 more clips. Scooters on narrow streets, Ubud rice terraces, neon nights. He looked healthy. He looked euphoric. He looked not at all like a man who had chemo yesterday. My ears rang. I scrolled back to our last text exchange. Ryan, V, they kept me overnight. Insurance refusing the second round. I'm scared. Me, I'll call the billing office. Don't stress. We'll make it work. Ryan, you're an angel. Please don't tell Mom. She'll freak. I had called the billing office. I'd negotiated payment plans. I'd maxed one card to keep his treatment from being interrupted. I even added a note on each transfer. For hospital bills, because he insisted it would help him track everything for reimbursement. No. Folly. I wanted it to be old footage. I wanted any explanation except the one that sat heavy and obvious in my gut. I replayed the beach clip and paused it on a frame where he raised his arm. The tattoo on his wrist, the small compass he got at 19, was right there. Fresh tan line. Same watch. Then I opened the PDFs he'd sent me the week before. Admissions summary. Oncology progress note. They looked generic. Logo black text, a signature that looked too smooth. No discharge code. No MRN. How did I miss that? I'm a numbers person. I audit these details for a living. How did I just believe? Because he said the word cancer. Because you don't second guess that. Because he's my brother. I called him. No answer. I called again. Third ring, he picked up, loud music behind him. V. Bad reception. What's up? Where are you? My voice sounded thin. You said you were recovering. I checked out early. They said rest is good. I needed a mental break so you flew 14 hours to a beach club? There was a beat of silence. Don't be dramatic, he laughed, soft and slurred. My friend comped the trip. You worry too much. Ryan, I said, did you fake the hospital papers? He hung up. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stared at my laptop while the tacky confetti in that video kept falling on loop, like the universe was mocking me. Then I did what I do when the ground tilts. I opened a new spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, note. Column D, file name. I tracked every payment since February. 42 transfers. $46,970.86. Rent deferred twice. Emergency fund. An emergency joke. I copied the PDFs into a folder. I enlarged the doctor's signature. I compared the letterhead spacing with a real bill from a minor surgery I'd had last year. Fonts didn't match. Code numbers looked off. A cold calm settled over me. I texted him one last time. I need the oncologist's name. Now. He didn't reply. But his friend posted another story. Fire dancers under a pink sky. I watched it like a person watches a car crash. And then I closed the app and booked a meeting with a lawyer. Who does that to their own family? Who looks their sister in the eyes, says, "I'm scared," takes her money and goes off to buy bottle service on the other side of the world. I thought I'd hit my breaking point. I hadn't. Not yet. That was still coming. But the switch flipped in me that night, the one that moves you from, "How could they?" to "Watch me." You want a twist? Here's one. He'd faked everything before. Not cancer. But close. During discovery, Elena found an email chain where Ryan used a slightly altered logo from my firm to send himself a contractor payment from a shell Gmail I didn't own. He'd used that as proof of income on his condo mortgage application. He had forged me into his stability. I felt sick. I also felt vindicated in a way that made me nauseous. Every red flag I'd ignored lined up like soldiers and saluted. The second twist was Kinder. I wasn't as alone as I thought. Zoe testified via affidavit about the hospital's verification. My manager wrote a letter noting the financial hardship I'd disclosed in HR because of family medical expenses. Aunt Maggie found and scanned my old journals where I'd recorded payments and worries. Elena said contemporaneous notes were gold. And an unexpected ally, my cousin Jules, a paralegal in Spokane, dug up a small claims case from years ago where Ryan had conned a roommate with a fake, urgent dental bill. The pattern was not an accident. It was a lifestyle. Elena sat me down the night before our first big hearing. "This part will hurt," she said. "Defense will try to paint you as resentful, controlling, jealous. They'll say family money is always messy. Don't bite." "Bite," I said. "I plan to be boring. Court is not TV. It's fluorescent lights, waiting, and then 5 explosive minutes." The judge, a woman with kind eyes and zero patience for nonsense, read the hospital statement for a long time. She asked Ryan's attorney where the originals came from. His attorney said words like miscommunication, and recollection, and stress. The judge's eyebrows moved 3 millimeters. I watched those eyebrows like my future depended on them. She granted a provisional writ of attachment on the Audi, pending trial. She granted a lien on the Ballard condo, also pending. Ryan swore under his breath. Dad stormed out. Mom cried into a napkin. I stayed still except for my hands, which shook in my lap like birds trying to lift. On the way down the courthouse steps, Elena touched my arm. "We'll push for settlement. He will not want trial." "Do I?" I asked. She gave me a look that said gently, "You want relief." Relief came from an unexpected place the following week. A DM from one of Ryan's Bali friends. "Hey, I feel gross. He told us his sister was rich and mean. I didn't know the cancer thing was fake. Here are the Airbnb receipts and the bottle service tab he split with a card under his name. Thanked him." I cried in my car. Then I forwarded everything to Elena. The leverage tipped. Ryan's attorney called Elena to explore resolution. Elena asked for every dollar plus fees plus a public apology sent to our immediate family acknowledging the fraud. He balked at the apology. She didn't blink. "Then we try it," she said, "and your client can explain Bali." That night Mom left me a voicemail. "He's your brother," she whispered. "We make mistakes for the people we love." I sat on my rug and listened to it twice. Then I pressed delete. Love is not a get out of consequences card. I said that out loud to my empty apartment and felt the room agree. Elena's office smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet power. She listened without interrupting, her pen moving across a yellow legal pad in neat blocks. When I finished, she asked 3 questions that punched through the fog like headlights. "Do you have original files?" "Yes." "Do you have proof the documents are false?" "Not definitive." "Patterns?" "Missing MRN." "Wrong billing codes." "Do you want your money back or do you want accountability?" "Both," I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. She laid out options. Criminal fraud would be hard. Family cases often are. And prosecutors have limited appetite for domestic deceit. Civil fraud? Stronger. Especially with fabricated documents and a clear money trail. She could also file for a temporary restraining order to freeze any funds he might move once served. But the first step, she said, is verification. We need a hospital to confirm the papers are not theirs. Enter Zoe, my coworker who dates a compliance analyst at Swedish. I didn't want to involve her. I didn't want to involve anyone. But this isn't a movie. You don't do justice alone. With Zoe's connection, Elena got a statement from the hospital's risk team within 48 hours. The letterhead was outdated. The doctor's name belonged to a provider who left 2 years ago. The signature didn't match any digital cert on record. They didn't say the word fake. They said, not ours. That was enough. Meanwhile, Ryan finally texted, stop calling. Taking space. Treatment is private. I replied, you're being served. He sent a string of laughing emojis. Then nothing. Elena filed a civil complaint for fraud and conversion in King County Superior Court. Amount claimed, every dollar I wired. Plus statutory interest. Plus fees. She explained we'd ask for a prejudgment writ of attachment against his car, an Audi S5 he loved more than breath, and a lien on his condo in Ballard. My stomach flipped. Can we do that? If a judge sees evidence that assets may disappear, she said, they don't love waiting. I told Mom and Dad before the process server did. I drove to Tacoma and sat at their kitchen table that still smelled like lemon pledge and denial. I put the folder down. Mom read the first page, paled and whispered, he wouldn't. Dad didn't read. He raised his voice instead. You don't take your own brother to court. He took me to the edge of eviction, I said. He faked cancer. Dad jabbed a finger at the folder like it had personally insulted him. You always needed to be right. This is you punishing him for being different. He said different like a halo. I stood up. This is me refusing to be your ground. Mom begged me to wait to handle it as a family. I asked, which part of our family handles accountability? She had no answer. Dad said, you'll regret this. I said, I already regret not doing it sooner. The process server found Ryan 2 days later. He posted a rant on Instagram about snakes in the grass and fake family, then DM'd me a photo of his wrist with the compass tattoo and the words, you can't take what's mine. Elena sent his attorney a discovery request for bank records and communications tied to the fake invoices. We also subpoenaed the friend who tagged him in Bali. That friend, may he always travel light, supplied everything to avoid being dragged further. Screenshots, receipts, the booking confirmation with dates overlapping Ryan's supposed chemo weeks. It was ugly. It was a relief. Then came the family dinner. The one where I told the truth out loud. We met at Aunt Maggie's because she insisted on neutral ground. She set a roast on the table and poured everyone iced tea like we were still pretending. Ryan arrived late, sunglasses on. He hugged Mom. He didn't look at me. I stood, heart pounding but steady. I'm suing because you forged medical documents and took almost $47,000 from me under false pretenses. Dad exploded about loyalty. Mom whispered prayers. Ryan smirked and said, you can't prove anything. Aunt Maggie put her hand on my elbow. Show them. I slid photos from Bali across the table, then the hospital statement, then a printout of every transfer with 4 hospital bills in the memo. Ryan's face drained of blood as if the lie finally cut him instead of me. He reached for the pages. I didn't let go. Tomorrow, I said, we go to the first hearing for the attachment orders. The room was a vacuum. Eventually Aunt Maggie exhaled and said, dinner's getting cold. And we ate. Because sometimes that's what you do while your family collapses. You pass the salt and chew. But in that quiet something final settled. I wasn't the ground anymore. I was the earthquake. The settlement landed on a gray Tuesday that smelled like rain and photocopier ink. We met at Elena's office. Ryan arrived with his attorney and a posture like arrogance had calcified his spine. He didn't look at me. Elena read the terms in a calm courtroom voice. Ryan would admit in writing that he sent falsified documents and misrepresented his medical status to obtain funds. He would repay $46,970.86 plus interest and fees, totaling $58,412.19. Payment structure: $20,000 upfront, the rest within 90 days, secured by sale of his 2018 Audi S5 and a forced sale of his Ballard investment condo if he failed to meet the deadline. He would send a written apology to me and to our parents and aunt. He would agree never to solicit money from me again. Ryan's attorney pushed back on the car. Elena didn't budge. "He can Uber," she said. I almost smiled. He signed. I signed. Our signatures looked like two different languages. He slid the pen back with a cheap flourish like this was performance art. Elena handed me a copy and a glass of water because she knows practical magic. Dad called within an hour, yelling that I'd ruined Ryan's life. I said, "He rented out pieces of mine." Mom asked if I would forgive and forget now. I said I would forgive and document. They didn't like that answer. Ryan paid the $20,000. It came in like something flung, resentful and fast. He posted, taking a break from socials to focus on health, like irony was his first language. Then the 90 days began. Here's what consequences sound like. The whir of an auctioneer when your car hits the block. The scrape of a for sale sign into wet soil in front of your condo. The click of an email that says funds received. The Audi sold first. Clean car, good price. The rest did not come. Elena filed to enforce the settlement. The judge, same kind eyes, rolled her ballpoint in a way that suggested impatience with boys who think contracts are opinions. The order authorized sale of the Ballard condo. It wasn't his primary residence. Couldn't hide behind homestead rules. He tried to stall. Real estate agent came anyway. Within a month it was under contract. Closing day, a cashier's check cleared into Elena's trust account and then into mine. Balance paid. Interest included. He texted me after the transfer hit. "Hope you're happy." I stood in my kitchen holding my phone like it was heavier than it was and typed, "I'm free." I blocked his number. There was no parade. No confetti. Just the quiet of a life where my money and my spine belonged to me again. I closed the spreadsheet and labeled it resolved. I moved the settlement money back into my retirement account. I bought a new coffee table. I bought flowers because I wanted color in my house that wasn't a bruise. Healing isn't cinematic. It's groceries that don't make you do math twice. It's sleep without that chest-tight thread count of dread. It's noticing the sun slant on your windowsill at 4 p.m. and feeling it, not fearing the next ask. I drew boundaries like lines on a map. Mom still calls. Dad sometimes does. I answer when I have capacity. I end the call when guilt shows up dressed as family wisdom. Aunt Maggie texts me memes and recipes and "proud of you," and I send her flowers on Tuesdays because Tuesdays are lonely and she never made me earn tenderness. I started therapy with a woman named Eden who says things like, "We teach people how to treat us by what we allow, and your anger saved your life." She doesn't ask me to make excuses for people who had decades to learn not to steal from their daughter. She claps when I say no. Work got lighter because my brain wasn't running a second, unpaid job as a fraud analyst for my brother's lies. Zoe and I started taking long lunch walks around South Lake Union. Sometimes we talk about nothing. Sometimes I say, "I feel like a bad sister," and she says, "You were a good sister for too long," and I breathe like I've been underwater. I worry about him. Of course I do. He's my brother. But worrying isn't funding. Worrying isn't erasing. If he wants a different life, he can build one with honesty. I built mine with a calculator, a stubborn streak, and a willingness to be the villain in a family story that needed one to end. Turns out I'm not the villain. I'm the editor. Maybe you're listening to this at 1 a.m. phone glowing because someone you love is treating your heart like an ATM. Maybe you've paid rent you couldn't afford or covered emergencies that never end or swallowed insults salted with, "That's just how he is." I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to tell you what I did when I ran out of reasons to betray myself. I believed myself. I gathered proof. I asked for help. I chose the courtroom over the kitchen table where excuses go to breed. I survived the silence that comes when you stop being useful to people who only loved you that way. The last time I saw Ryan was at Aunt Maggie's porch months after the sale closed. He walked up the stairs like his legs hurt. He didn't look at me. He asked Aunt Maggie for money. She said no. He turned to leave. I said, soft because I meant it, "I hope you get better." He shrugged. "You always think you're better." He left. The porch light hummed. Aunt Maggie squeezed my hand. We went inside and ate reheated pasta and watched a game show where strangers cheered for strangers, and it felt like hope. Today my savings are boring again. My apartment is full of small bright things I paid for without fear. I booked a real vacation, to the Oregon coast with Zoe and her girlfriend, paid in full. I brought a paperback and fell asleep to the sound of water I didn't have to hold back. Family taught me many lessons, some cruel, some useful. The one I carry forward is simple and not negotiable. Family isn't blood. It's who truly loves and respects you. It's who shows up without a bill, who says, "I'm sorry" without asterisks, who celebrates your boundaries like birthdays. I have less family now by DNA. I have more by choice. If you've faced a betrayal like mine, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve it. If you're on the edge of your own breaking point, consider this your sign that you are allowed to step off the ground you didn't consent to be. You are allowed to let a liar meet a judge. You are allowed to protect your life from people who set fires and call it warmth. I used to think love meant absorbing impact. Now I know love, real love, means no one has to be the ground. And if you need me to say it for you until you can say it for yourself, I will. You don't owe anybody your ruin.